and surah, or the chapter number 4, which is called Al-Nisa, or women. And I seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. And the subtitle for this verse is How to Deal with the Hypocrites. Why should you divide yourselves into two groups regarding the hypocrites among you? God is the one who condemned them because of their own behavior. Do you want to guide those who are sent astray by God? Whomever God sends astray, you can never find a way to guide them. 89. They wish that you disbelieve as they have disbelieved, then you become equal. Do not consider them friends, unless they mobilize along with you in the cause of God. If they turn against you, you shall fight them, and you may kill them when you encounter them in war. You shall not accept them as friends or allies. And the footnote for 489 says the basic rule controlling all fighting is stated in Surah 60 between verse 8 and 9, from 8 and 9, and we'll get back to that uh, in a moment. So God is talking about, because it is it is a known fact from the Quran. It's a Quranic fact that there will always be hypocrites within the communities of submitters or believers, and they always are active to create confusion, create doubts, and they are actively trying to convince people to become doubtful just like them, or create or make them suspicious about something, so they start questioning God's wisdoms or God's revelations. So their role is quite destructive if you think about it. So God tells us how to deal with them. Obviously, when people are able, God exposes them, and God is saying that believers should not fight among themselves because of them. It's usually what happens is, as somebody says, okay, these are hypocrites and these are not, and somebody taking their side and somebody, you know, being harsh and stern with them. So that causes a division, right? That people will start, having debates with each other or quarrels with each other, and it can really destroy the peace of a community. So, and why God says they wish that you believe as they have disbelieved, then you become equal. This is Hypocrites are not certain. They accept the religion, but later on something, God tests them to be. God tests all of us. God will test everybody. Whoever proclaims to be a believer in God alone or submitter to God alone, they will be tested. And hypocrites get exposed very easily when God tests them. A situation will come where their true colors will be very prominent, and you will be able to recognize them. But God does not want believers to make this issue, if they're exposed, to become a bone of contention or an issue that can divide them eventually, potentially. And so, what is the role of these hypocrites? God says they wish that you disbelieve as they have disbelieved. Inside them, they're not believers. They have absolutely no belief. So they are doing basically lip service. They're just in a way mocking or trying to look like righteous or pious, and the world is full of those hypocrites everywhere. You will find them in every religion. So they try, if they have a doubt about something, they will go to other believers or submitters, and they will, you know talk about their doubts, so they can become this, so they become in majority. So that is the truth. about this. So God says, do not consider them friends. Once they're exposed, we should not lean towards them, because their innermost convictions have been exposed. And obviously, people are able to recognize them. That's why God is saying, do not consider them friends. It's not like they will always be hidden, they will always be deceptive. Once they are exposed, people need to be, the believers or the submitters need to be like in other verses. God says, be harsh and stern with them and don't become their friends. You just keep, like a comfortable distance from them, that you don't mingle with them too frequently. It's just if they're part of a congregation, they need to be, you know, they need to feel that distance. Okay. And then God says, in the case of war, you shall fight them. And if you encounter them in a war and they are trying to kill you, you may kill them. Well, thank God in this time and age, there are no wars in a situation like where you have people are stopping you to practice your religion and you have to fight them, or they wage a war against you just because of religion. I mean, it can be possible on personal level. There are certain countries where people, are, if you go to those countries and you say, so-called Muslim countries, that you believe in God alone and you follow Quran alone, and you do not want to say name of Prophet Muhammad in your Shahada, they might come after you. However, obviously, there are different laws and different settings. In such situation, we do not need to. We need to be careful where the majority of people are, and if you're singled out, you have to protect yourself and not disclose your identity as a true submitter to God alone. And the the basic rule, the footnote says the basic rule controlling all fighting is stated in Surah 60, verse 8 9. Another thing I would like to say here, mention here, is that these kind of verses have been really abused by mullahs and traditional Muslims, that they they think they have the right to kill people if they are non-Muslims, quote unquote infidels, kafirun or whatever. They have a free ticket and to go and attack them. So God says the basic rule controlling all fighting is stated in Surah 60, and I'm going to read that, inshallah. Okay. So it says basic law regarding regarding regulation relations with unbelievers. Surah 60, verse 8. God does not enjoin you from befriending those who do not fight you because of religion, and do not evict you from your homes. You may befriend them and be equitable towards them. God loves the equitable. And God enjoins you only from befriending those who fight you because of religion, evict you from your homes, and band together with others to banish you. You shall not befriend them. Those who befriend them are the transgressors. Now, if you notice here, it's very clear that who can we befriend? It's not about hypocrites, it's the unbelievers. For example, your neighbor can be unbelievers, your own one of your sibling can be unbeliever, or your own children, as long as they do not fight you because of religion, physical or mentally, and they don't evict you from your homes, because this can happen in today's time as well. A parent can, if their son or daughter has accepted submission, and the parents are from another religion, or they are traditional Muslims or Christians or any other religion, uh, and they evict you from your homes, and they try to banish you, you shall not befriend them. Those who befriend them are the transgressors. So, those, if you notice somebody has fought you because of religion, you never befriend them. You keep very strict distance with them. If they're equitable with you, they don't care that to use your religion to damage their religion. You try to give them the message and they refuse it, and they're still polite with you and amicable and respect you what you're doing, you're fine. So, however, this is not the case um, when it comes to many traditional Muslims, and they they do not follow the Quran properly because it's only against the aggressor that you're permitted to fight. We have heard about several uh, people, mob lynching to other people that think, just stating that this person has done blasphemy and blasphemy to Prophet Muhammad, or something very minor, which is nowhere in the religion, and they feel like they're doing something good while they're killing this person. Astaghfirullah. God has made life sacred, and God tells us in the Quran very clearly that nobody should kill anyone, okay, unless in the course of justice, or or you're defending yourself. And then we have read these verses that very clearly tell us. Okay, we move to verse 90. Exempted are those who join people with whom you have signed a peace treaty, and those who come to you wishing not to fight you, nor fight their relatives. Had God willed, He could have permitted them to fight against you. Therefore, if they leave you alone, refrain from fighting you, and offer you peace, then God gives you no excuse to fight them. So here, this situation brings us back into history, where Prophet Muhammad, um, I think they migrated to from one city to another, and there it was mostly unbelievers or disbelievers there, but they stopped the war, and they said, they signed a contract like a peace treaty, and that they will not hurt the believers, or they will not fight them, and they can keep their religion, and you can keep your religion. So they were, this kind of treaty was called Sulh Hudaybiyah, and I think it was the name of the city was Hudaybiyah, according to the history we have read in our school times. I could be wrong, however, there was something like that. Um, so these people, and those who come to you wishing not to fight you nor fight their relatives, so they're not bothering you, they don't want to fight you or your relatives, and had God willed, He could have permitted them to fight against you. So God held their hands of aggression. God tells us in the Quran that, you know, it's God who is controlling the hearts of all the people, even if they're your enemies or your friends and all that. If God wants, He can put love into hearts of the people. If God wants, He can hold the hand of aggressor against you. So God is running everything. We have to absolutely always think that. There would be many tests where we'll be tested, and our faith in God and His absolute authority to be omnipotent and omniscient and omnipresent and all that, we have to absolutely accept that. So if we know that God is running everything, that their hearts are also controlled by God. So if they leave you alone, refrain from fighting you, and offer you peace, then God gives you no excuse to fight them. Okay, I know I have read only one more verse, and we'll take a break there. 91. You will find others who wish to make peace with you and also with their people. However, as soon as war erupts, they fight against you. Unless these people leave you alone, offer you peace, and stop fighting you, you may fight them when you encounter them. Against these, we give you a clear authorization. Now, this verse is a little bit different, has a different tone. So now, people who have signed a peace treaty and they are wishing peace, obviously, God is saying, you do not fight them. You know, you're only permitted to fight against those who are aggressors. Okay, if they leave you alone, refrain from fighting. So even if there's fighting going on and people say, okay, ceasefire, we accept who you are and we respect that, and and they in this scenario they had signed a document, and then God says in 91, you will find others who wish to make peace with you and also with their people. However, as soon as war erupts, they fight against you. And now it's back to the hypocrites. Apparently there's some people will say, oh, no, no, we have, uh, you know, these are also sort of enemies. I don't know. I don't think these are hypocrites. These are people who are kind of playing a role here. They're disbelievers, and they would say we wish to make peace, but they are kind of deceiving. That once they find any good moment where they can attack you, they would do that. So if the situation of war comes, they will be fighting with the enemies. So these are again deceptive people among those, even those who offered peace, all right, or ceasefire or something like that. And God says, unless these people leave you alone, offer you peace, and stop fighting you, you may fight them when you encounter them. Against these, we give you clear authorization. Now, in this time and age, when there is all out war happening and, people have to defend themselves, and these people, once you've seen them, that they fought against you, even though they had offered peace, and if you see them again, and God says, when you encounter them, not in war, you just uh, encounter them, now you recognize them. So these are real enemies because they will not hesitate to kill you when they get a chance. So God is giving an authorization to profit at that time. And the people, obviously, today laws are different. At that time, whoever was the ruling, tribe was controlling the laws and all that. So we are in very different time, and we cannot think about these things anymore. Uh, so now God is giving prophet a clear authorization to fight these people. Okay. All right. So inshallah, we will take a little break here and discuss these verses. If you have any questions or any comments, please say so. Thank you.
Yeah, mashallah, awesome. Uh, one has to realize this that how awesome, how merciful God is. He does not advocate fighting, unjustifiable fighting, for no reason. Aggression is condemned. Oppression is worse than murder. We see all these kind of verses in the Quran. Like, I mean, killing somebody is less severe than you oppress someone, and oppressing someone because of their belief, not letting them worship openly, or just God says that oppression. So basically, oppression is worse than murder. And in here, I mean, this is amazing how God is saying that even if these people they are disbelievers, they could be hypocrite or disbeliever, and they don't want to accept you, but maybe they are in a little weaker situation that they will not fight you, and they're like lay low, and they are hiding something in their heart. But when opportunity arrives, they will stand up with those opposition, and they will fight you. I mean, these are like those wicked type of clever people that they sneaky and they just hide in under. And even in that situation, God is not allowing prophet to fight these people. Only at the point where they fight you, then you and respond to them you fight. So there's nowhere we find in the Quran that God says, "Go kill these people, go do this, go do that." It's always mentioned in self defense, and not starting the fight, and only fighting to the justable level, that where you don't go above whatever harm they have done to you. You cannot go above that. So all these verses, it just points to that our God is such a merciful God, and He teaches us mercy through His revelations. MashaAllah, praise God.
Oh, sure. Anybody else has any comment or question regarding these verses we just read?
I'll make another sorry, another quick comment on hypocrites. That they're very, very dangerous people. Have you ever noted, like, somebody tells you something, can you do this for me? And there's no way you can do that, right? So, you know, they will keep in like little dent, trying to convince you, come on, man. And time after time, they'll tell you, you could have done it, you can do it, you can do it. And slowly, 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 you get to the point that you already do it. And then you look back and you say, what happened? I mean, I never wanted to do this. I never wanted to. Suppose he wants to take you to a bar or club, and you never want to go there. But you slowly, slowly, slowly get to the point, and you are standing in the bar, and you realize, how did I get here? I mean, I would never want to get it. But this is how hypocrite system works. The Satan system works. That they pinch you slowly, slowly, slowly. So that's why it's very be careful if you hang around someone like that, and they can steal your religion slowly, slowly, and over time you will become one of these. And that's why the company we hang out with is so important. Mashallah, just to be.
Mhm. Yeah, there is an old saying that misery seeks company because they feel miserable. God says they bite their fingers in rage. They
Yeah,
hate the believers.
yeah,
They hate the believers, and believers should not be loving them.
right,
Okay, so they want you, God has clearly told you, they want you to disbelieve like they disbelieve.
yeah,
Inside, they are disbelievers. So outside, they're showing that they are believers. So they are classified as hypocrites. God says hypocrites are destined for the deepest pit of hell because they're very damaging. You can recognize a disbeliever openly. They don't fight with you. They don't mind. They're minding their own business. They're whatever, they're gone astray or not, but they're not bothering you. They're not saying I'm just like you, and but they come and damage you. So a hypocrite, their whole mission is to create doubt, and they slowly, it's like a knitter's. You're wearing a sweater and there is a tiny little hole, and once you let them their finger in it, the whole sweater will be gone.
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, if you go to like one of those caves where there continuously spring water is like drop, 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 drop. Over the years, you will see where the drop was hitting the stone, the hard stone, and there's a little ditch in there, just with water. So that's how it happens.
Okay, inshallah, we will start now from verse 92. Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. You shall not kill. No believer shall kill another believer unless it is an accident. If one kills a believer by accident, he shall atone by freeing a believing slave and paying a compensation to the victim's family, unless they forfeit such a compensation as a charity. If the victim belonged to people who are at war with you, though he was a believer, you shall atone by freeing a believing slave. If he belonged, if he belonged uh, to people with whom you have signed a peace treaty, you shall pay the compensation in addition to freeing a believing slave. If you cannot find a slave to free, you shall atone by fasting 2 consecutive months in order to be redeemed by God. God is knower, most wise. And the footnote here says, since slavery does not exist, the offender must atone by fasting 2 consecutive months. Okay, so now we're coming to here. The footnote subtitle is clearly saying, you shall not kill. God has made life sacred. God says it's a sacred thing. Okay. You cannot just go and kill anyone unless you're in the situation of war due to oppression or aggression. and you're defending yourself. So, and especially then in this verse, God says, no believer shall kill another believer unless it is an accident. So, if it is something, accidentally happens, otherwise, there is no situation, no condition, no matter how mad you get at somebody who is a believer, no matter how you think any kind of feelings you have against for any issue regarding any issue, it does not give you any reason. God says you shall not kill another believer, period, unless it is an accident. By accident, it can happen, so if one kills a believer by accident, then God says what to do if that happens, right? In today's time, and it's called manslaughter, or you know, but if there is absolutely um no fault of the person, you know, by accident it happened. Um, Even here, it's not considered murder or anything. So the life is so sacred, and especially believers are very, very few. So it is absolutely prohibited. Under no circumstances you have permission to kill, another believer. So in case of accident, that God says you shall atone by freeing a slave, because it is such a burden on your soul. The atonement is required in this case, right? So your soul needs to be redeemed. And for redemption, what is God asking you to do? Is you if you in those times and days, slaves were commodities, somebody would buy a slave forever to work for them, and they pay a hefty price, to a slave driver or whatever. And then that he's working for you, you are in a comfort, the slave is doing everything. Well, I'm so happy, thank God, that slavery is gone now, at least obvious slavery. So if you cannot, and paying a compensation to the victim's family. So first you free a slave, okay? That is like a really good thing. Or you spend money on somebody, but you let them go now. They're free. They can live a life according to how they want to. Okay? They don't owe you anything. And then you also pay compensation to the victim's family. If it was a man and he was, responsible for feeding the family and all that, that's a big damage to the family. So you shall pay some kind of compensation which is acceptable to them, unless they forfeit such a compensation, unless the family says it's okay, we forgive you, or they don't want that money or whatever kind of compensation you give it them, in material way. Okay. And if the victim belong to people who are at war with you, though he was a believer, you shall atone by freeing a believing slave. So even before there was a believing slave, so that takes a priority. If God gives them an exit, some somebody who was a slave and became a believer, they have the first right to be like, if you have few slaves, right? And rich people had a lot of slaves, and if there is a believing slave, you will free the believing slave first. And if God says, if the victim belong to people who are at war with you, so this believing victim belong to people, she's from a family who's actually at war with you, but this person was a believer. Okay. Though he was a believer, you shall atone by freeing a believing slave. If he belonged, so the same criteria goes here. Okay, a believing slave would be freed. And if he belonged to people with whom you have signed a peace treaty, we were talking about the peace treaty where those people who are not believers, um, but they are like in peace with you, and they're not bothering you anymore. You shall pay the compensation in addition to freeing a believing slave. So this is also going toward that's it. How detailed is Quran? In every scenario, God is not leaving any room to guess. It's very precise if you pay attention to it. And then God says, if you cannot find a slave to free, so obviously not everybody has slaves. So what if this person did not have a slave? You shall atone by fasting 2 consecutive months in order to be redeemed by God. God is knower, most wise. So main thing is the redemption. So you don't carry that. And whatever God, all of God's laws are good for our soul, no matter how harsh they look, because your soul needs to be redeemed. Imagine you're fasting for 2 consecutive months. It's not easy to fast 1 month. you know you become very subdued and humble, and you get connected with God more, right? And you feel helpless, and you feel weak and tired and whatnot. So if this person didn't have slave, and that time or today's time is most likely this applies. Okay. So if a submitter, it happens by mistake, or it is an accident, and the system leaves you, you not punished by system because it wasn't your fault. So you still do this fasting for 2 months in order to be redeemed. The redemption is very, very important, so you don't carry that burden, and your soul is finally purified or redeemed from that crime or whatever that happened. It's heavy. Okay, so a couple of more verses, inshallah. Verse 93, an unforgivable offense. Anyone who kills a believer on purpose, his retribution is hell, wherein he abides forever. God is angry with him and condemns him, and has prepared for him a terrible retribution. So, absolutely, anyone who kills a believer on purpose, his retribution is hell, period. And there's no compensation for that. And God says, um, he abides there forever. God is angry with him. Imagine God's anger. When God is using the word angry, God is actually angry, even though He's a most merciful Lord. Imagine the anger, God's anger, you know? It's God absolutely, definitely does not like that. And instead, He's very angry and condemns him. And He had and has prepared for him a terrible retribution. So we have to be very, very, very careful. Obviously, a very evil and wicked person would go and kill another believer, you know, while he pretending himself to be a believer as well. So that is an unforgivable offense. There is no redemption for that. If somebody can, by mistake, like we know from the Quran, that Moses committed a manslaughter, it wasn't intentional, but he hit this person and he eventually died. And but God later on forgave him. But not this kind of offense. If purposely, on purpose, somebody goes and does a wicked act like that, it's absolutely, he abides, his retribution is hell. 94. O you who believe, if you strike in the cause of God, you shall be absolutely sure. Do not say to one who offers you peace, you are not a believer, seeking the spoils of this world, for God possesses infinite spoils. Remember that you used to be like them, and God blessed you. God blessed you, therefore, you shall be absolutely sure before you strike. God is fully cognizant of everything you do. So now, in the situation of wars or otherwise, like again, I'm sorry about that. Sometimes people say, okay, we're fighting in the cause of God. Obviously, today it has taken a different shape. I mean, people attack and lynch other people like, oh, we're fighting for blasphemy law and we can kill the person so and so has committed a blasphemy. Sorry, I'm going to close the door. And so that they think they have the right to kill this person, right? And they will make, even believing people, they will like people who are just like them, and they will say, no, you are not a believer. uh, so so if you are, you shall be absolutely sure if you strike in the cause of God. Now, obviously, not at least these days in, this kind of society where we're living in. um, the people are not really fighting in the cause of God. They're fighting in the cause of tyranny, most of them. You know, either it's politics or it's the contentious land. They like what is happening in Gaza right now. It is two communities who are fighting constantly, been like since 1946, I believe. The land, one claims it's my land, the other says it's my land, and that has become a, obviously one is more powerful party, the other one is not so powerful. However, they constantly have become agitators, and the powerful party is obviously the bigger aggressor, and the dispute continues forever and ever, seems like it. So God says, you shall be absolutely sure, do not say to one who offers you peace, you are not a believer. So let's say if somebody is not even a believer and they offer you peace, you don't say that, hey, you're not a believer, so I have the right to kill you. See how clear is God here? So you seeking the spoils of this world, for God possesses infinite spoils. So if there is some kind of greed, or you're doing it for other reasons, something not spiritually is involved here, but you're doing for worldly things or some other motive, God says He possesses infinite spoils. You don't need to do that. Okay? Anything you need is ask God. So you don't tell them, you're not a believer, even though you're not fighting with me. Please. And so you have to respect that. Therefore, you shall be absolutely sure before you strike. God is fully cognizant of everything you do. So even you could, somebody could kill someone or they attack them, and you have a malicious motive, and you're not even sure, for other reason you attack them. It's, God is prohibiting you. You have to be absolutely sure, and that person has confessed, the hatred and disbelief, and that they want to attack you and kill you. Only then, once again, we have just read verses about in what situation, the permission to attack or for the war. So the one who comes in peace, you don't fight with them, and you don't call them disbelievers, because now I have the reason to attack you or kill you or anything, because God knows our innermost thoughts. So you have to, once again, God wants to save lives. God calls life a sacred. Life is a sacred thing. So do whatever you can to spare a life rather than be rushing to take a life. So, God willing, on this note, I will end our study here for today. And if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to ask or comment. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
MashaAllah, sister, awesome Quran study as well.
MashaAllah. Praise be to God.
Praise be to God, mashallah. Very good Quran study and very good explanations by God's grace.
MashaAllah. Praise be to God. Thank you.
बंद करना चाहो तो कुरान बंद कर सकते हैं अपने वास्ते
Is there any question anywhere?
So, is there a different compensation for the anyone kills a believer? But what about somebody kills a disbeliever, who they are not at war with?
Well, I haven't, not that I know. God said, you shall not kill.
Yeah,
Mm.
basically. But the
Well, I think,
compensation would be different, right? Or
yeah, there is, it is for the equitable, what is the law? There is a law
they
for the
give
man for the man,
compensation.
woman for the woman, but if they forgive, that is in general.
Mhm.
Hmm. So if a man kills a woman, you cannot kill the man instead. Law of equivalence, yes. However, God says to saving life is more righteous, to forgive, or you can pay the compensation and all that. It's detailed in the Quran, mashallah. So that's why in this time and age people say the taban and all that, right? To pay some kind of compensation. And in Pakistan they're practicing this very much. Rich people kill somebody and then they pay off the family and then they get away from the law.
Yeah, mashallah. This is where we learn the innermost intentions are the most
Hmm.
important. Like in verse 94, God knows our innermost intentions. If we were like there's a war was going on, and this person suppose is a believer, kills the other one, who's offering him a peace, and this person says that no, you are not a believer, and kills him for seeking whatever he holds, the money,
Hmm.
treasure, whatever. So that was his intention, and that is so important because we do make mistakes, not on that level, but like daily dealings, business, job, and what is our innermost intention. That is important because when we make a mistake, our intention was right, but we end up making a mistake and we feel bad. But that is very different than you intentionally did something wrong and was intentions were very bad. Maybe this like you're working and you want to get a promotion, and you create a situation where the blame falls. And I think this verse gonna come up in the future verses in this same surah. The blame falls on that person, and he end up not getting the promotion, and you get the promotion. So now that is extremely bad in God's eyes. So as long as we keep our intentions pure, and we obviously gonna make mistake, but God knows our innermost intention, and that's where you're basically judged. Another verse I want to mention is that 493, unforgivable offense. I mean, if you look at from unforgivable offense, what is the other unforgivable offense if maintained until death is idol worship, and that is not forgiven no matter what. Similarly, this is another unforgivable offense that is not forgiven, and I'm not sure if somebody does deliberately does anything like that, and God is merciful. Maybe God will make an exit for this person if it's really sincere repent. But if this person dies as the same situation that killing a believer, that it's not forgivable. So this God takes this one at the level of idol worship. This is, I mean, if you look at that way, idol worship is the gross injustice, right? So this is equal. God brings that to that level that this is also not forgivable. So we don't know exact level, but this is also seen as a very, very extremely gross offense, gross injustice, right? In that sense, if you look at it. So, and now you go on the other side. Now you look at who God is saying that I'm not going to forgive the sin are the believers. If anybody who kills a believer, this is now look at now you're going to ask a question. Okay, this is a very very horrible sin. Who God is talking about killing a believer? Oh my God! Then believer in God's eyes have such a high level. You think about it, that you want to be rushed towards to be a believer and a righteous person, because This is very, very important in God's eyes. In this side, God says, God is angry with them. Look at all the negative words God has used. Wherein they abide forever. Hell is the retribution. God is angry with them. He condemns them. He has prepared for them a terrible retribution. Not a single good word. All of them a horrible word. Use anyone who do this to this person. Now this person must be very, very important in God's eyes. That anyone damages this person is gonna have this kind of consequences. So this in itself, if you reverse the situation, you will see the believer is such a high rank. And even messenger of the covenant says that I don't know why people cherish the messengers and prophets where they don't even have guarantee to go to heaven. They themselves are striving to go to heaven. And God doesn't say that the most righteous is the messenger or the prophet. You know, God says that the most is who tries to be righteous and believer. These are the highest ranks in God's eyes, not the being a messenger, a prophet, or anybody else. Mashallah. That's just a example, mashallah.
I think streaming has stopped. So, yeah. If anybody has any other question,
No, the streaming is going on.
this? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to stop it?
No, I thought it had stopped.
No.
I guess if nobody has comments or questions, then we can stop.
Sounds good. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you. Our next study is going to be on Saturday at 9:30. I'll be good. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
So,
Assalamu alaikum.